How's it going, fellas? Today I'm going to tell you the story of the time I was led on so viciously that it should honestly be criminal. In fact, I'm even considering doing a ritual tonight to summon the Council of Justice and Law to see if I can make this a criminal offense when it comes to all matters of time and space. Don't forget to leave a like on the video to receive literally nothing in return, and with that being said, let's just jump right into the suffering. Alright, so that introduction might have been a little dramatic, but fellas, this is still a tough night for me. I definitely I received a decently sized L, so sit back, relax, and basically, let's set the scene. So I was going to a graduation party, or was it even a graduation party? No, I think it was a birthday party. It was a party for something, right? And it was for someone who I used to know in baby group. Basically, what I mean by that is when I was 2, I was apparently best friends with them, which I just never spoke to them after like the age of 3. So we had a really great relationship for 1 year that I don't even remember. And I was going to their birthday party because our parents are still friends. But, I'm like, whatever, right? I'm social enough to like talk to people I don't really know that well. Like, I don't need to know people for 15 years to hold a conversation with them. If you asked me to do this like 3 or 4 years ago, no chance. The whole reason that we were going really was because my mom stayed really close connections with the mother of the person that I knew for like a year in baby group. So we were heading over, my mom and I, and we eventually get to the place. And we're about like a minute or two early. And, we didn't want to be late to the whole like party thing. But at the same time, you didn't want to show up like 10 minutes early. If you guys don't know, it's kind of just not a great thing to do because most of the time when you're setting up a party, there's always like a few things that are just like left undone that, you don't realize you needed to do until like a minute before people start coming. And it's just good to show up a little bit late. For most things in life, it is not good to show up a little bit or just late in general. But when it comes to parties like this, unless otherwise specified, you don't want to show up that early. So we got there a little early, sat in the car. I was kind of just like thinking to myself, well, this is going to be potentially very awkward. So eventually we decide to go in and we're looking around. We got lost for like a minute or two, but I'll spare you the details. It's not that interesting. But eventually we find it and my mom sees the mom of the person that, who's hosting the party basically. And she goes up to them, says hello. The person I knew when I was 3, let's just give her a name. So let's just call the person Ariel, the person I knew when I was 3, because I don't know any Ariels, and obviously I'm not trying to use some real names here. So Ariel comes up to me, we say hi to each other, we have a little bit of small talk since, she knows where I went to high school, she knows I graduated, she knows I'm going to college, right? So that's already like a couple minutes worth of conversation you could do. So we look at the place and there's this long table and I see kind of parents on one side and then Ariel and her friends on the other side. And it wasn't like there was a divider or anything, but there was like, I don't know, let's say like 40 seats going down. That might be a little bit too many, but about 40 seats going down. Maybe seats, I don't know, 1 through 20 were Ariel and her friends and seats 35 through 40 were like the parents. So basically I had to find a place to sit. And Ariel's mom basically said, oh, go sit over by the girls. And, that's totally not awkward. Just a guy who has never spoken to anyone sitting with, a bunch of 20 girls that he's never spoken to in his life. And actually, I thought to myself, well, Connor, this can be incredibly awkward. Or if you play your cards right, maybe this will be a fantastic party. You never know. Because I started thinking to myself, okay, Connor, what are actually the downside risk here? Like we're doing a risk analysis on this like you would a stock or something. And I was like, I'm probably never going to see these people again unless I really make an effort to see them again. So if I completely embarrass myself, make a fool of myself, I will never probably have to see these people again if I don't want to. So even if I mess up big, there is really no downside besides like initial embarrassment, which isn't fun. But I was like, upside could be pretty good. I get some practice being out there, just talking to people. Before I head off to college, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be awkward today. I'm not going to do it. So eventually I walk over to the table with all the girls and I walk over there pretty confidently because I realize that if I kind of slump over there or look like I have no idea what I'm doing, that it's going to turn into something pretty awkward. Like it's going to be obvious if it's only going to be weird if I make it weird. That's the way I go about it. So I sit next to someone and there's a girl on my left and I instantly start talking to her because I was on a little bit of a confidence streak and I was like, let's keep up this momentum because I believe that in situations like this, it is pretty much momentum based and I was really not trying to see it with no momentum or momentum going in the wrong direction, I'm gonna call the girl next to me Sandy because I was just watching SpongeBob with my mom. I was watching the camping episode, probably one of the greatest episodes of SpongeBob, but that's besides the point. So I sit next to Sandy and I instantly start banging out, the standard questions you ask someone, right? Because there's kind of like a standard set of questions you ask someone who you don't really know, but you have a sense. Like, they go to high school. I'm like, all right, are you trying to go to college? What are you trying to study? Like all that, like what are you doing in school? And we kind of like bang out the standard questions with each other. And her responses were good, bro. Like I've been in situations, trust me, where the responses are essentially being left unread in real life. Like they're terrible. They're basically like yeah, okay, haha, like just garbage like that. But this wasn't that. If anything, she was asking me the same number, if not more, questions back. So the conversation was definitely alive. And then out of the blue, she says, "Hey, are you in a relationship?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, we're being blatant here. Like we're being 100% here." Because Sandy was not a bad looking girl. Like, well, I'm gonna be honest. Like there might have been a few reasons for me talking to her, not just because I was trying to find a new buddy pal or whatever, but that's beyond the point, right? So she asked me that. I'm like, oh wow, we're going blatant, bro. Like we're just going 100% out here. Like we're not trying anything fancy. We're just asking the questions. And I was like, no, because I wasn't, bro. I wasn't. I was incredibly unsuccessful for the longest time, and I was off that streak. And right after I say no, she bangs out another question. There was no blank spaces. There was nothing awkward about it. Somehow, I don't know how it wasn't awkward, but it wasn't awkward. I was like, all right, so I got like an hour, 2 hours left at this party to talk to this person. Like, okay, we're doing some work. Maybe this could be something, right? So eventually it's time to go get dinner. So we all head over to this kind of like salad bar place where the food is. So she's like ahead of me in line, and she picks up a plate and turns around and hands it to me and kind of gives me the smiles, and I kind of like smile back. And then eventually we get to the salad portion, and she like, when you know how salad, you can put stuff on it. Wow, I bet you guys didn't know how salad works, right? And we get to the onions, and she says, "I shouldn't be eating these," and then looks at me. And that was probably nothing, because as we'll hear later on, that was turned out to be nothing. But I wasn't sure if that was a precursor for something. So I also didn't get any onions, because if you don't know, onions make your breath smell bad, and I thought that there's a correlation. All right, so that one wasn't as strong as the "are you in a relationship" like 5 seconds into the conversation one. But I was like, all right, things are moving, things are working. Like tonight's gonna be a fantastic night, fellas. So the night continues on, and we just keep talking about stuff, and I don't know how I'm doing it. I don't know how I'm holding this conversation with someone I just simply do not know. I must have had some kind of like witchcraft spell on me that just made me think of really good conversation topics, because in most situations, if I don't know someone and I don't really have that much in common with them necessarily, the conversation just falls off in like a minute or two. And it's not even me not trying. It's just I'm like, what do I do? So at one point, conversation kind of comes to a lull a little bit. We're all at the table, and I see that she whips out her phone, and I can't really see what her lock screen is, but it looks like a lock screen with like her and some dude. And I was like, okay, this is a little strange. Like, okay, this is good to know. So I continue on the conversation, and then the topic of sports comes up. I don't know why it didn't come up earlier, or it might have very briefly, but I kind of just asked what she did, and she was like, oh, for the winter, I actually manage. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, because I was actually manager for girls soccer in the fall, because I just didn't play a sport then. It was an interesting time. Maybe that'll be a story time for another day. But she said, oh, yeah, I manage varsity hockey. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And she said, yeah, it's really cool to go to the games because, my boyfriend plays on. I'm just like, what? I'm actually pretty proud of myself because I didn't break conversation. I actually, responded pretty normally. And then I asked her another question after that, because it's in an older story time, so you can go click on the playlist in the description if you want to go find this video. But there's been times in the past where people have quote unquote led me on, or I led myself on. And when they admitted to having a relationship, or just told me, I think admitted's maybe too strong of a word. I literally last time I just stopped the conversation and said, I'm tired. It was like 7:50 in the afternoon or at night, and I just went to bed early. So this time I definitely handled it a lot better. So after that point, after I follow up with a little bit more, I didn't have a ton of motivation to keep up the conversation. And I know that sounds bad on the surface, but at the end of the day, like we really just didn't have that much in common. And it just, the conversation in general around the table was kind of coming to a lull. And eventually she gets in a conversation with her other friends there about stuff that is truly just school related, like, oh, why this professor sucks or whatever. And I'm like, I just can't simply relate to this on any matter at all. So I was just I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll let you guys have, like, I'll just kind of chill here. I'll have a good night. I'll enjoy my food. Like, it doesn't really matter. All right, so maybe I did just simply play myself, and I think I did play myself. There's no question about it. I definitely played myself. But you have to, fellas, you have to admit that if you ask someone right off that, like, after like 2 minutes of talking to them, hey, you in a relationship? Like, maybe that's just, to me, I was like, oh, maybe I'm getting a signal here. It obviously doesn't mean anything. It's not like a guarantee. There are no guarantees in life, but I kind of was thinking that maybe it meant something, maybe, I don't know. If you enjoyed this Storytime playlist, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and on screen right now appears 4 videos. If you want 1/4 of a second of good luck, all you gotta do is click on one of the 4 videos right now. There's even a Storytime playlist, which will let you see all the older story videos if you got nothing better to do. Please click on one of the videos. I'm trying to feed my 15,000 pugs at home, and every view really counts. Yeah, I like views. Bye.